Monsieur Anber.
I don't have a cup of tea tonight, believe it or not. I'm in England and I don't have a cup of tea because I'm in the hotel room and I don't have a cup of tea. So you're going to have to get a orange soda.
Oh, I thought you were maybe taking a glass of champagne after the big victory. You've been on a celebration tour. I haven't been able to talk to you. So for those of you who are tuning in, another edition of Calling Russ Anber. Russ is still in London, England. I'm actually in an undisclosed location. As you can tell, it's not the usual office background. I may be asking you guys to send me some funds before the end of the show. But nevertheless, all kidding aside, it's another edition of Calling Russ Anber. And we have a lot to talk about because people who don't know, we haven't spoken, Russ, about the fight at all up until the time of this recording since the big win Saturday. So that's why I was saying, as kidding aside, the champagne is, you must be enjoying what's been happening since the fight, right?
I enjoyed everything leading up to the fight as well. And then culmination of maybe, definitely one of the greatest experiences of my 42 years in the game. I've never been on such a large stage, in 42 years. This has to be the biggest fight I've ever been involved in. Now, when I think quickly on what are the big ones, Otis Grant against Ryan Rhodes for personal reasons.
And it was on the road as well, wasn't it, in England?
It was in Sheffield, England. That's right.
Yeah.
So, obviously for personal reasons, that was a big one. Otis Grant against Roy Jones himself. Of course, that was, great. Unfortunately, not getting the win. Jean Pascal and Lucien Bute, that was fantastic. If I go back years, I've assisted at the fights between Mello and Marcotte, but didn't work them, so it doesn't count. That doesn't count. I was at Leonard Duran, but didn't work the fight. That doesn't count. I was watching those guys. Now I was in the same position as those guys were in, and I've been at two Canelo fights with.
Wait, but you also had Wilder, right? You had Wilder against Steve Earn.
Wilder against Steve Earn. I was going to mention that, saying this is my second heavyweight champion, that I've worked with. But I'll tell you what, all those others, besides the personal emotions that you feel with those other fights, being as close as you are, like Bute and Jean Pascal in Montreal, the emotion was so heavy. It was fantastic. Everything from the workouts, the public workouts, the media events, was incredibly intense. But this, brother, this was something, like 70,000 people in the building singing for Anthony Joshua.
But I saw that you said 70 all week, so we're going to go with that. You rounded off 66. It's still an impressive number.
66?
Yeah.
You know what? 66 would be the admission, right? 66 would be the paid admission.
Yeah.
You have to think that there was 4,000 people in there that had the comps and that were special guests and invites and promoters and, bro.
And it felt like the biggest pre-pandemic. It felt like a pre-pandemic event. It felt like the biggest post-pandemic event we've had, even though Canelo, I know, sold out Cowboy Stadium against Billy Joe Saunders. Everything from the intro, from the week leading up to it, it felt like, a big major heavyweight title fight. And of course, Usyk winning. So I guess you definitely must have felt that all week.
It was unbelievable. I can't even begin to describe what that was like, even with the people when you go to the restaurants, or in my case, to the snooker club. First day I walked I rang the buzzer at the snooker club because the doors are locked, right? And this big guy who's now become a friend of mine, his name is Abs, big guy, he says, "Are you a member?" And I said, "No, I'm from out of town. I'm here for work." "Oh, okay. Well, it costs £8.60 to become a member." I said, "Well, just for a week? I just need a membership for a week." No, we don't do week memberships. It's £8.60 for a year." And I'm thinking to myself, how do you come up with an amount like £8.60 for a year? It's not even worth it to have a membership, right? So I said, "Okay, no problem. We'll do that." He was a real nice guy. I said, "We'll do that." And so, of course, one thing leads to another. And, "Why are you in town? What's your work? What do you do?" And I show him, and I've got my rival T-shirt on, whatnot. And he's looking. And so we get to talking boxing. And he's a huge fan. And I'm here for the fight. I'm here for the fight. He went nuts. And they became friends of mine. I went there every night leading up to the fight. And, the people in there would want to talk about the fight. The buzz was absolutely electric. And I cannot even begin to describe it. But even more so, Matt, what I've got to put into perspective is this was Oleksandr Usyk, underdog, former undisputed cruiserweight champion of the world, moving up to fight boxing's cash cow, and certainly England's cash cow, you know, the face of boxing in England. And
So the locals weren't upset.
really,
They were treating you right while you were there in the snooker clubs and stuff. They weren't upset about the fact that you were working with the enemy, in a sense.
no, it's sports. Plus, this was all, you know, before the fact. Maybe they won't treat me as good now. No, they were fine. They were great. They were wonderful. They all saw it on TV, and so yeah, they loved it. It was great, and I was really proud to be part of that. And I'm proud to have played a role in the fight. You know, it wasn't just there as an appearance. I had to work for one of the rare times with Usyk where he got cut badly. I don't know if you saw the pictures. I don't know if it should.
And they're also for those
show
who
it here.
Yeah, and Russ, and for those who may be interested, Boxing Social on their website, and Luke Williams, friend of ours, did a big profile on the cut, so people can look into more in depth as well, because it wasn't during the fight a cut that we noticed much on the broadcast. But at one point, Joshua also had a ton of swelling, and Usyk had cuts all over the place. Like, do you remember how early in the fight you had to deal with that cut? Yeah, there you go.
You see that quite good?
It almost looks as bad as the Badou-Jack cut, but obviously in a much smaller,
in a different place.
It looks
in
deep.
a different place, yeah.
Yeah.
The Badou-Jack cut caught the vein that comes down the center of your forehead, and it was open from here right down the center. This one was not. This happened, I believe, in the 10th round, and Usyk called me yesterday on FaceTime. He was going out to dinner with his wife, and he called me from his car, and in his broken English said to me he felt the blood streaming down his face when I don't know if it was a headbutt or a punch, and he says he felt the blood streaming down and started to panic because he was worried because there's a British referee, and if the blood, he doesn't know how bad it is. All he knows is he feels the blood coming down his face, and he says, you know, I was worried that the referee's going to jump in, look at my cut, and wave it off. And he came back to the corner, and I got to the cut right away and took care of it. He said in his broken English, he says, Russ, I go, bell ring, I go. I wait for feel blood, and don't feel blood. I said, okay, Russ fix. He said, Russ fix, and away he went. So that was, you know, that was kind of his way of saying thank you very much, and it meant a lot to me that he did that. And when I showed him the cut after, he had no idea it was that big. 3 stitches inside, 7 on the outside.
And
so
it was when you saw the cut in the corner, and after that 10th, you know, around the 10th round or so, did you think to yourself, okay, we're in trouble here, or were you pretty confident that you had it settled in after he went and entered the ring and didn't bleed?
You know what I thought about was that same feeling that I had when Jean-Pascal dislocated his shoulder against Adrian Diaconu. Was the same feeling I had.
Or the second? Was that the first or second
fight? Second fight.
Yep.
Same feeling I had when Jean fought Luchan, you know, when the whole place, everyone was there. And I remember Jean's stepfather saying to me, are you excited? I said, no. I said, there's nowhere else I should be than right here. And that's how I felt in the corner. I worked on it, you know, no stress. Like I wasn't freaking out. I wasn't panicking. Now, had it kept bleeding and there would have been a problem, maybe, but he came back to the corner, did the same. Okay, guys, ready, get ready. Bell, ding, boom, up, in, do the thing, put the pressure on it, do what I have to do, and stopped it. And, you know, maybe I'm just not getting caught up in the emotion anymore like I used to, you know. You don't get caught up in the emotion.
Yeah, but I think also, Russ, there's probably a factor of the reason you're there for these big fights and why cutman role, even though some use it as just a, you know, an extra body, there is an art to it. And because of all the years you've put in the game to, you know, learn how to treat cuts and maybe in a better way than others, isn't that kind of why, you know, rewarding in the sense, okay, this is why they validate having me in for these big fights, because you don't have a European connection with them. You're in Montreal, you know, most of the time, and you're traveling all the way. That's the work you've put in over the years leads to you knowing that, okay, I got this cut in the big fight. That's why they have you there, probably, right? I mean, maybe you don't want to say, you know, you want to stay humble about it, but it's why they probably went to say, okay, you know, job's earned. That's why we had Russ in the corner and not just any guy.
That's what you get the big bucks for, right?
Yeah.
That's what we pay you to do. You're supposed to do that. I hope so, Matt. I really hope so. You know what? I didn't feel, regarding the cut, I did not feel the pressure with Usyk because it happened in the 10th round. I did not feel the pressure in that like I did in June in Las Vegas with Lomachenko.
Yeah, and Loma talked about that, how much it happened early on and could have been a big factor.
Matt, I swear to God to you, when that happened, now this is bearing in mind Loma's making the return after the loss to Lopez, the comeback, round one, bang, there's a clash of heads, whatever. He splits open up top and the blood is pouring down his face. He comes back to the corner. I swear to God to you, I've never felt anything like this before. I could feel the eyes burning on me from the management, from Top Rank, from everybody's watching what's going to happen. Now they're all getting ready. Like, does he pass or fail? You know, this is it. You know, here it is. This is the first round. You've got to save the guy. You know what I mean? I felt pressure in that one, boy. That was the scary one because all eyes were on me. Because if you don't get it, they're going to say, "What the hell are you? What are you good for, man? You had a cut. You needed to stop it. You blew it." You know what I mean? That was the pressure one. Everyone was watching that one, and I did it, and it was good. I felt good about what I had learned over the years, what I had learned from watching, you know, Roger Larrivee, Bernie Ewenson, Ralph Citro, George Drouin, you know, watching how they did cuts, how they handled the cuts, what they did, and you know, it has served me now, working all those years as the bucket boy and watching these guys and working and being there and seeing how they do things. I learned, and it served me well, and now it gave me the opportunity to be involved in a historic, a fight that will be marked in boxing history forever, that the undisputed cruiserweight champion of the world moved up to become heavyweight king, and that's huge.
And you know what's funny about that, Russ, is I remember when we talked about after the Chisora fight, it seemed like everybody sold their stock on Usyk for that performance because they said, oh, you know, he kind of a bumpy ride the first few rounds against Chisora. Usyk then found a groove and ended up winning a decision. But they said to themselves, well, if Chisora, who's nearly, you know, top 10, top 15-ish of the heavyweight division at this stage of his career, if he does that to Usyk, how the heck is Usyk going to beat the top guys at heavyweight? But you at the time, remember, also talked about the fact that styles make fights. Usyk was just getting his body acclimated. And the thing I think people forget with Usyk, because he's not a much, you know, very big public figure, especially in North America, he's disciplined and he's training all the time. So he had time after the Chisora fight, at least that's in perception I had from, you know, reading him and hearing what he had to say. He had time to really work on different things, to work on the game plan. And you saw the cruiserweight Usyk in that fight against Joshua. Weren't you kind of validated about the fact that you knew people were counting Usyk out too quickly against Joshua?
You know, I always, and somebody said 2015. I'm not sure if that's right. Somebody said 2015 on Twitter. Somebody else sent me a clip of an interview I did in 2018, and it was at the weigh-in. It was at the weigh-in for Gvozdyk and Stevenson, and they did an interview and discussed my role with Team Lomachenko and so on. And then they had this clip. This is 2018. Let me see if I can play this for you.
Category? Absolutely. I love Usyk. And, you know, what he's done is as well nothing short of a miracle also. And, you know, maybe, and I mean, people might jump all over me and say, no, it was Holyfield. Maybe the greatest cruiserweight in boxing history. And I'll tell you this right now, and I'm going on record saying this so you can send this hour, he's going to win a piece of the heavyweight championship of the world as well. He will be heavyweight champion of the world. Well, thank you very much, Russ Anber. It's a hot take. My pleasure.
I thought that was nice. I forgot about it. You know, I thought that was nice.
Forgot about it.
They remembered that. So, you know, like, and I knew at that time, Joshua was the king, and that's who I was talking about. And a friend of mine from the UK also put something on Twitter and said, after Liam Smith won his title, we went out to eat, and Russ Anber told me that Usyk is going to beat Anthony Joshua. And so I believed in Usyk all along. You know, I believed in him all along. And not only do I believe in him as a fighter, but I believe in him as a man. You know, I think he's just a stellar human being. You know, one of the best humans I've ever had the privilege of meeting. I really love the guy.
Well, don't you think also that was refreshing to see throughout the week in the fight, after the fight, you could have a massive fight an engaging fight in the ring, and you didn't have to have shenanigans, people pushing each other, insulting the people's wives and mothers, and doing stupid stuff on Instagram and social media. Wasn't that refreshing to see you could have a legitimate fight between two gentlemen? And boxing can be, like, to me, it was one of the good times this past weekend. And in the last few years, we haven't had too many in boxing. We've had a lot of circus acts and, of course, some situations that we're not too excited about. But that one, to me, really felt refreshing, that even Joshua in the loss and the way he was, both men were humble and both men delivered action in the ring.
And 70,000 people turned out to see it. You didn't need to do any of all that hype. You didn't have to hit anybody over the head or flip a table or do any stupidity. They came out because of the quality of the fight. And I think that's what boxing needs to realize, is that the quality of the people and the quality of the fights sells tickets. The other stuff just becomes a sideshow and a freak show, and you're kind of like looking at it from a gangland perspective than you are from a sporting event. And, they went at it with full intensity. Joshua wanted to knock him out. Usyk wanted to get him in that last round. He came down the stretch in 9, 10, 11, 12. It's I've often said this before, when you have that kind of class, that's when boxing is going to come back. But as long as we keep going along with this pre-written script that, okay, get on the scale, weigh in, face off, push each other, do something. So like it happens to everybody. Everybody does it. 4-round guys are doing this. Yeah. They weigh in, they come to the face-off. Like, when did it become mandatory to have a face-off for the undercard? Okay, face-off, look at each other, now look away. It's so scripted, it's ridiculous, it's copy-paste. Everybody does it. Every broadcaster, they all do the same thing. Why? Well, why? What's the point? I don't understand it. But we do it that way. And, it's a breath of fresh air that they do this. But I had an interview earlier today. And again, I have to say this, and I know the younger generation might not know this, but look it up. Look up Secretariat and his Triple Crown win.
Yeah, you showed me that one once in the boardroom. Remember that one?
Yeah, yeah. And, when I look at Secretariat, when I think about Usyk, I think about Secretariat. When he's in, when the opponent is in 5th gear overdrive and he's pumping on everything and the RPMs are going, Usyk's still in 3rd gear. He hasn't even started to make his move yet. Just like Secretariat, the horses are pulling, they're going, they're all out. And he's lagging behind. And when they're pumping, and when he decides to go, that horse goes. And I'll never forget that call. I think it was Chick Corea who made the call. I hope I'm right with that name. I'm sure I'm screwing it up. But he says, Secretariat is running like a tremendous machine. And he wins the Preakness or the Belmont by 25 lengths, the greatest win ever. And that's what I felt with Usyk, going into after the 8th round, it's been back and forth. Maybe Usyk is ahead a little bit, but you could sense now that the stability is starting to shake Anthony a little bit, and Usyk starts turning it on. And just like everyone was saying here, a masterclass.
There's a few things to bring up about the fight itself as well that I really want to hear your take on, because I haven't been able to talk to you about this. Were you surprised that Joshua did not try to physically impose himself more? Or do you think people are discrediting the fact that Usyk is so tough to time, awkward, and Usyk at one point threw a big, almost like a side with left hand, and I almost throw that shot again, Usyk, and he never threw it again or didn't throw it much, but you could tell that he was able also to hurt Joshua. So do you think that's why Joshua backed off from fighting him physically? Because a lot of people are claiming that Joshua should have been much more physical from the get-go instead of trying to outbox a superior talent, or a superior boxer, I should say, in Usyk.
Listen, there's 2 ways you go about this. There's 2 ways to look at this. And there's 2 scenarios that could happen, maybe 3. You fight the fight that he fought. You try to stay with the guy, not let him get too much in an advantage, not gas yourself, stay with him, try to pot shot it almost like an amateur fight, if you will, just score points when you can, try to stay with him and never know which way the judge's decision is going to go. That's the decision. That's the path they took. The other path is to do what you say. Why didn't he impose himself physically? Well, the 2 possible scenarios of that are he does, and he has success, and he bullies him, and punches him and knocks him out. Possible.
Meaning Joshua over Usyk, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Possible. Maybe not probable, but possible. Okay. But if that strategy fails, if you impose that kind of taxing work on your body while you're trying to do that with a gifted athlete like Usyk, and you don't get him out of there, you're not finishing the 12th round. You're not going to finish the 12 rounds because you're going to have spent yourself, and this guy's still coming, you know? So I think had he done that, the exhaustion that Anthony might have felt in the last round, which I believe it was more exhaustion than the punches that hurt him. I think he had put so much mentally and physically into the 12 rounds. He was just exhausted. He showed a lot of heart to be in there like that. But showing that, you know, he might have felt that way in the 9th round or the 10th round, you know, if he had gone for it. So and then if you do that and it fails and you lose, it makes the rematch even more difficult to sell. You know, it makes it even more difficult. The same way that, you know, I don't feel or hear any buzz from the Wilder Fury fight because everyone thinks it's a 3rd fight that should never happen. You know, it should never have happened. We've spent 2 years since 2018. We've spent, you know, with Fury and Wilder going back and forth with each other, you know, like it's ridiculous. Right. So, and Wilder not having fought either. So it's, you know, it's always easy to second guess.
But Joshua Russ wasn't thinking about the rematch in the ring. Like, I don't think he was thinking, oh, if I lose badly, I can't get the rematch.
But you don't think about it in the ring. But I'm saying when you're conceiving the plan and putting the plan together, he fought the way he trained. Like, this was the strategy. He didn't say, okay, in the gym, I'm going to maul these guys. I'm going to throw them around and then come out and box the way he boxed. It was all about being smart, and he was slimmed down. He was at 240. You know, he was slimmed down. He didn't get bulk up. He was trying to stay quick. Everything was designed to try to stay with Usyk's speed and be able to go with him the long route. You know, I mean, everything was designed to go the long route, not a short fight. So that's the way he looked like, you know, and in hindsight, you say, oh, you know, I saw where somebody said, a friend of mine, actually, Michael Wood, said, oh, he needs to get a new trainer, you know, and
yeah, a lot of people have been taking shots at Rob McCracken, including Tyson Fury's father.
Unjustified in my opinion. You know, you're blaming a guy instead of giving credit to Usyk. Is it possible you just got beat by a better guy? Can that be possible, please? Can that be possible that you might have just lost to a better guy? That's all it is. It's not every right away. And we've talked about this before, Matthew, whether it's a team sport or whatever. Every time that the home team gets beat, oh my God, they played so terrible. What about the other guys? They were there. They contributed to that, you know? So, and when they said about getting a new trainer, I said, you know, the last 19 opponents of Usyk are 0-19, and there's been 19 different trainers involved in trying to beat him, and they haven't done it. Okay, so give a little credit to the guy, right? Give a little credit to what he can do. You know, I think it's unfair, and it's always easy to criticize. You know, had that chess match strategy that McCracken came up with, you know, if he's the guy that architected that, you know, if that had worked, and they had gone close, back and forth, you know, exchanging rounds because he's not letting Usyk dominate in any way. You know, if he's neutralizing Usyk and just doing enough to sneak around in here and there, if that had worked, they'd have said trainer move of the year. You know what I mean? They didn't, and he lost. And okay, you know, it happens. You lost to Oleksandr Usyk. You didn't lose to you know, Joe Schmo. You know, you lost to Oleksandr Usyk. I mean, come on. You know, give a little credit. The guy's the Olympic gold medalist, and he's the 2-time heavyweight champion of the world. Please.
I wanted to ask you a few questions about this fight. There's a lot of stuff I want to get to. The Usyk fight in the corner. Did you think at any point, though, entering the 12th round, were you guys nervous because this wasn't a fight on the road, and we've seen crazy scorecards in the past, of course, in boxing? Was there any doubt in your minds that he had to win the 12th round, or were you confident that the win was there?
Look, we sent him out to win the 12th round. And I don't know if they picked up on my mic in the corner, like we're yelling at him, right? We're go, come on, go, let's go. We're telling him he has to work. And he goes in the corner, he goes, and gets up off his stool. So he was so mentally in the zone to win that, because the whole camp, the whole preparation was based on him not going to get a fair shake in the UK.
So you weren't expecting one, okay?
Credit to the judges, albeit the British judge, had Usyk not done what he did in the 12th round to win that round, you couldn't give the round the other way, right? He had to dominate that round. If the round was in any way close, the British judge ends up with a draw on his scorecard.
Yeah, which I think a lot of people felt based on the early rounds, and then the late rounds, it was a clear Usyk victory. And I was surprised. I thought maybe they would try to get a draw in some of the scorecards, but fortunately, I think it was a good, the whole experience for the boxing, from the lead up to the fight, and then the result ended up being one of the good moments, one of the ones we can actually brag about, saying this is how you do a good event from start to finish without any controversy, because it doesn't happen much anymore. What about the fact, you want to jump in here for a second? Or?
Yeah, what I wanted to say, I think when you look back on the fight, the result of the fight played out in the first 4 rounds, because the rest of the fight kind of went the course it was supposed to go.
Well, that's what Roy Jones was saying. Roy said he was stunned by how good Usyk started. He expected Usyk to get better, but then he saw, okay, when Usyk started out with winning those rounds early, he said, okay, we have a fight here. We got a chance to see a new champion.
Yeah, and I believe that that's 100% true. And I discussed this with Roy as well. And we were even thinking, even if Usyk loses the first 5 rounds, he has to come on in round 6. He has to win 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He has to get Joshua to work as much as he can early so we can get him down the stretch. And Joshua didn't fall for that, and he didn't end up winning the early rounds, and Usyk did. And they ended up being the difference in the fight, really, because everything else kind of went to script. If it would have been as we thought the fight would happen, that Joshua would win the first 4 rounds, or if we could get out of it 3-1, we'd have him ahead, and then we'd come back and kind of be even through the middle, so we'd make up a few rounds, and then Secretariat comes down the stretch in 9, 10, 11, and 12, right? That's how we saw the fight going. So when you look back on it in hindsight, the fight played out in the first 4 rounds, and it was Usyk who became the front runner, and Joshua now had to play catch up, and that made it more difficult, made him expend more energy, made him more tired, put more pressure on him. And I think that's where the fight played out.
Also, a lot of video has been showing of the leverage when a southpaw fights an orthodox, about how Usyk's front right foot was most of the time on the outside. So he had the outside leverage, and Joshua's kind of pocketed in. So it means when Usyk's throwing his left hand, he has more of a straight line for that shot. Did you notice that during the fight? Do you think that's valid? Can you explain to people why that's so important? When the southpaw fights an orthodox, you need to have ideally your foot on the outside of your opponent.
As great as Usyk is, if he would have been a right-hander, this fight is a lot closer. This fight, the difference in it, not only the superior skills, great skills that he has, great conditioning, strength, respectable power. The major thing was he's able to do that as a southpaw. And that is, look, I don't care what anybody says. You ask 9.5 out of 10 right-handers will tell you fighting a southpaw is a nightmare. It's a disaster, because they do things that are so natural to them against a right-hander, and it is so completely unnatural for the right-hander. It's a nightmare. And believe me, that's the truth. And I know when, Otis with southpaws was a mess. We hated southpaws because everything that he did was designed to defend and counter and punch and angle against a right-hander, which was massively successful. Against a southpaw, it's so difficult. There are fighters who can do it and they're not bothered by it. Roy was never really bothered if you were right-hander.
Pascal had a lot of success against southpaws as well.
Jean, he had that, but this was it's generally a massive advantage when you can do that. And I think both Loma and Usyk exploit that to the max. I think it's a completely different fight if he's right-handed. I'm not saying he doesn't win. He still could win. Mm-hmm. But it's a completely different strategy. It's a completely different, because now the guy can size you up. As a southpaw, you're on the outside. You know, you talked about the foot being on the outside. Yes. That means that you're almost automatically neutralizing the right hand. He almost can't touch you with the right hand. You're so far away, he almost can't touch you. And that wouldn't be the case if it was two right-handers.
Yeah, that's right. No, I thought it was a good technical point to explore. And I said previously that there was no controversy involved in the fight. Now, the only two videos, or some people have showed on social media post-fight, has been Anthony Joshua. I don't know if you've seen this, Russ, that Anthony Joshua was kind of saved by an early bell stoppage in the 12th round because of the timer of the zone was not matching the ring. And also videos of the corner maybe kind of coming up and trying to stop the fight. Did you see any of that, or even when you were there live, or have you heard or seen the videos online?
No, I've heard about the early stoppage.
Yeah, the bell rang before it was final. The actual countdown was over.
Before I don't know why no one's done this already, because the fight's online. You can go and watch it. Just time the last round. Like, it's not necessarily exact to the second. The broadcaster's clock and the official time. It was 2 seconds. It wasn't
Do you think he was so fatigued that like another 10, 20, 30 seconds he might have been out of there, Joshua?
Well, the 30 seconds would have been an eternity for him. The 30, because he was very exhausted. I mean, it's one of the rare times that I've seen a fighter sit down while waiting for the decision. You know, like when he went back to his corner, he had to sit down and he was exhausted. He showed a lot of heart, and he gave it. He hung in there right till the very end, you know, burnt, exhausted. And he hung in there. And then finally, when the bell ended the fight, it was this massive relief. And all of a sudden, this fatigue that you've been fighting and harboring and not showing and getting rid of and camouflaging and doing everything you could to hide that, eventually it just, and like, this was it. There was no more, you know, he didn't have any ounce. So he didn't have an ounce of breath left in him. You know, that's how hard he worked. And, it wasn't that kind of fight that makes you think it's exhausting. But
mental fatigue must have played a role. A lot of people are saying Joshua seems to get the mental fatigue aspect of the pressure, the limelight. He's a major star in the UK.
It's not only Joshua, it's opponents fighting. Even when he's not doing anything, you're expending energy even when he's not doing anything. I can't even explain what that's like. Like it's like a throwback of, Joe Frazier used to put pressure on you, but Joe Frazier you knew was right there. Usyk, you don't know if he's coming, going, moving this way, moving that way. You're not sure what he's doing. You're trying to guess what his next move would be, and if you think this, he does that. It's unbelievable, the pressure that he puts you under. And it's not about Anthony Joshua's frailty in mental pressure. That's not it. It's what Usyk excels at, and he did it with Tony Bellew. Like, Tony Bellew had some brilliant moments early in the fight, but he had them at a time he didn't want to have them. He was forced to expend every bit of his boxing ability early. He was already in fifth gear by the time the fourth round started. He didn't want to be in fifth gear when the fourth, but he had to be to hold off this machine that was coming at him. He had to be in fifth gear. And then by the ninth round, he just didn't have any more of it. Left.
And Tony Bellew gave a lot of credit to Usyk throughout. I thought the broadcast team was very solid. I don't know if you had a chance to, have you watched the fight since?
No.
Okay. So you saw it live, of course, and then you didn't get a chance to see it afterwards. You had the best seat in the house, one of the best seats.
I didn't have any commentary, though. I only had my own commentary.
No, sometimes, the fighters do watch fights, even when they won after, and maybe at one point you'll rewatch it, especially if Joshua said after the fight, he was very adamant he wants to rematch next. Usyk, on the other hand, he seems like a very modest guy. It seems like he's just he wanted to go back to his family, going back to relax. I didn't get the sense that he necessarily wants to continue a long career or make a ton of defenses. Did you get any chance to talk to him about it? Do you expect him to just do the Joshua rematch and go from there, like taking it on a fight-by-fight basis?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what he's going to do. It's whatever is going to come up. I don't think Excuse me. I don't think that just please let people know it's 2:15 in the AM here. That's why I'm yawning. So
Oh, usually that's you're right into your prime time. You still got
I'd
some
be in
time
my
left at the
prime
pool
time
hall.
if I was playing snooker.
Yeah.
I'd be in my prime time.
You got
But
another
now
10 minutes or so, Russ, and then you'll be free.
No, it's good. But I didn't talk to him about it, but that's exactly how I feel. Is that he's going to take this fight by fight and what makes the most sense for him financially, what to take. He's smart with his money. He's going to just take it. He loves his family, wants to spend time with them. He works hard when he goes to camp, but it's hard work for him as well. It's difficult. And I think he just wants to be able to get out when he can. I don't expect that we're going to see him hanging around longer than he should have. I don't think that's going to be the case with Oleksandr Usyk.
And he's still undefeated. It's crazy when you look at his road warrior, the fights he's had.
But Matthew, think about this: undisputed cruiserweight champion of the world, unified heavyweight champion of the world, and he doesn't have 20 fights.
Well, that means it's also part of the amateur background, right? Because Loma has a great pedigree in professional ranks without many professional fights.
That's right. That's my point. That just shows the greatness of both of them. And we don't give them enough credit. We don't give them enough credit for that, especially, with Loma, in that, everything from his second fight on, except the last one, was a world title fight.
Yeah.
If anybody else, if any North American fighter would have done that, we'd have said, what? This is crazy, man. You've had 15 fights and you've got 14 world title fights in that. That's crazy. But they don't give them the credit for it. He's overrated. I said, shut up. When I hear people talk like that, I want to give credit. Shut up. You really shouldn't have a right to speak and say such disrespectful things.
When they don't give credit to what are you saying though? Shut up for what?
When people, fans, the haters, don't give credit to Lomachenko for his pedigree and what he's done and how great he is, and he's overrated, man, he didn't do this. He lost to Salido. Shut up, please. Please do us all a favor. Shut up.
All right, a few more on the Usyk fight. Now, after the bout, we have you briefly mentioned it. Next week, we'll get a chance to talk about it on next week's podcast, but it's Fury Wilder for a third time. Now, Tyson Fury and their fans have been saying this proves that Fury is far and above the best heavyweight in the division. He would toy with Usyk. What do you think? Like right now, if you compare Usyk to Fury or Wilder, whoever wins that fight, would you feel comfortable saying Usyk could beat anybody in the heavyweight division? Because some are saying, he won against Joshua, but Wilder and Fury, he shouldn't go there. It wouldn't end the same way for Usyk.
I think he'll toy with Wilder.
Really? And what about Fury? So Fury's a tougher matchup, though. You agree?
Fury is the tougher matchup. Fury, and Usyk has said this himself. Out of all of them, he said Fury's. They asked him once, who's the toughest, who's the easiest? And in order, the easiest was Wilder, next was Joshua, and the toughest one was Fury. Well, that's from Usyk himself. And I have to agree with that assessment. And I've told you before, Tyson Fury, because of his, I want to say athleticism, but it's not even athleticism. It's just his relaxed nature of what he can do and how flexible his big body is and how it defies the movement of how big he is. Like he should be a lumbering oaf, and he's not. He's fluid and nice and slippery. He does all that stuff. He's not muscle bound or anything. I'm telling you, he would have been a nightmare for any heavyweight in boxing history. Any heavyweight. Larry Holmes, Muhammad Ali, Joe Louis, George Foreman, Lennox. He would have been a nightmare for any of those guys. I believe that. I'm not saying he wins, but I'm not saying he loses either. He would have been a nightmare for anybody on his day. When he's in shape, when he's training, when he's focused, he'd have been a nightmare for anybody. He'd have been problematic. And, you could say all you want. Steve Cunningham knocked him down. Okay, he was a kid. Relax. Now he's in his prime. Whenever we talk about fighters, we don't talk about them when they're learning the game. But he has proven to be more than a formidable opponent.
100%.
A formidable champion. A champion, I should say.
Yeah, because anything else from that event, I was in Quebec City last week for Makhmudov, who's a heavyweight you usually work with. I was analyst of his fight that he won by first round knockout against Erkan Teper. He'll eventually, I think he's looked at as one of the better prospects. He's 32 years old, undefeated, all of his fights by knockout. There was good show there, but I enjoyed that event. You will be in Makhmudov's corner, of course, going forward, I'm sure, as his fights don't conflict with the Usyk fights. But anything else from that event in the UK, from that fight itself, or anything that you want to address before we move on to Manny Pacquiao's retirement?
No, Matt. I think I'm good with what we've covered so far. Again, I just want to reiterate how grateful I am, as just a Quebec guy, on the scene, wanting to, as a kid, dreamed of being in the big time, dreamed of being in a big boxing events and whatnot. That I've been fortunate enough to live out that dream, and I never feel like it's work, and to have been involved in the heavyweight championship of the world in front of 70,000 people live from London. Come on, man. It's fantastic. Fantastic.
And it's just something before I forget, Chisora, who you've worked with also post Usyk fight, who came into the locker room. I think, did you exchange anything? Did he say he wants a rematch now, or he?
I brought him in. We were outside. Like, there was, the way the room was set up, there was like, our dressing room was on this side, AJ's was on this side, and there was kind of like a main entrance foyer there, like which led into the arena, right? So we were in between the two, and I saw Derek, and I went and hugged him. Hey, Derek, how you doing? Talking. We were talking about, oh, it's good. I said, you want to come see him? He says, yeah, can you take me? I said, yeah, come on into the room. So I burst open the door of the dressing room, and I said, Chico, that's what I call Usyk. I said, Chico, he wants a rematch. He wants a rematch. And he came in. Usyk said, no boxing. They hugged, and it was really nice. There's a lot of respect between the two. You can't help but respect Usyk.
Yes, I was going to say, he's a likable. He just looks likable. Nobody can dislike them. I was even surprised though by how much him and Joshua embraced at the glove selections and taking pictures,
taking selfies,
right next to each other. You don't see that much, after the weigh-in's been done.
No, you don't. And I'm proud of that too. I thought that was wonderful moment as well. And I'll glad we got this moment. I didn't get it with Usyk, but I'm glad I was able to get it with AJ. This was at the glove selection.
Right, and we see it kind of. There we go. The screen is narrowing better. So that's another cool moment, So for you professionally, right, with the company with Rival Boxing, to have the both men choose to wear the gloves in the heavyweight championship fight of that nature. That was
how great is that? Like, that's the pinnacle for me. I'm involved in the fight, and both fighters choose to wear. They choose,
That's right. It's something important. It's not like Nike or other brands that we don't need to name, but a lot of fighters get paid. Joshua is a massive star. He could choose to get paid to wear certain brands, but he went with what he felt the most comfortable with. We'll see what he goes going forward, but that was pretty cool. A very cool moment. Good fight, great fight, and I think the rematch is pretty clear. It's going to happen at some point. Maybe it happens in Ukraine. Maybe it happens in a neutral site. We'll see. Before I let you go, it's your and enjoy either the remaining, hours of the morning in the UK. Manny Pacquiao retired officially. We expected that in many of us after the loss to Ugas. You were kind of hoping that he had one farewell bout to end on a winning note instead of having to lose against a last-minute replacement and a tough fighter in Ugas that you didn't like the matchup. You said as soon as that fight was made, you said it's not a good style for Pacquiao at this stage of his career. But Pacquiao chooses to retire with a tremendous career and focus, of course, on his now presidential run in the Philippines. Just want to read a few of the accomplishments for Pacquiao to put in perspective. And this is from Dan Rayfield on his Substack page. World titles in a record 8 divisions. He won world titles in a record of 4 decades. The only fighter to be the lineal champion in 5 weight classes. He participated in the highest grossing boxing event ever against Floyd Mayweather, and was the oldest fighter, to win a welterweight title when he beat Keith Thurman at the age of 40 in 2019. And that was only 2 years ago. So send off to it. We talked about class and gentlemen's in the Usyk-Joshua fight. Manny Pacquiao is when you think about class and gentlemen, you think about Manny Pacquiao.
So you didn't really need me for this part of the podcast.
I want to see what you think, what your thoughts are on Pacquiao. I came with some facts and my little sentiment there, and then let's hear. Do you have any memory? Because I know that you're a Marquez guy. I am a Marquez guy as well. So we kind of rooted for Marquez in the 4 bouts between the two gentlemen. But really, I think Pacquiao, any final thoughts? Do you think in the history of what to you is more important, the fact that he was so great for so long, or was it that he came with, only like a raw, strong left hand and he developed into a complete fighter? Because I think he'll be remembered more than just losing to Mayweather. Ultimately, I think he should be remembered for more than that.
Oh, he's an all-time great and one of the classiest guys to have ever laced the gloves on. Again, another example of what greatness should be. It's not only about the results, it's about what you are as a person, what you contribute. And I will forever, I'm on the record saying this, I am forever pissed for the way they made him end his career. That is your thank you to the years, to the money he's brought to the table, to the fans he has brought to boxing, to the number of T-shirts he's sold and tickets that he's sold, and publicized the sport that all of us were able to profit from, either directly or indirectly, as a result of who Manny Pacquiao was and what his drawing power was like. This is how you say thank you to him, by giving him a horrific style of opponent to fight in his final send-off. He should have had a fight which was one for the ages, the final goodbye, the last hurrah, whatever you want to call it, in a stylistic matchup that appeals to his style of fighting, and he retires in the center of the ring, thanking everybody for 4 decades of great boxing. I will forever hate boxing for what they did to him.
Wow.
By allowing him to fight that after all his contribution. And it just goes to show you, that right there just goes to show you, one of the sweetest men you'll ever meet, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, one of the most hardest working fighters, never in a bad fight, does this his whole career into his 40s, while at the same time taking care of things in the Philippines, wanting to be politically active in the Philippines. And how do we say thank you for all that beauty and grace and honor that he brought to a boxing ring? Fuck you, fight this guy. It makes me sick to my stomach. He doesn't deserve it. Just goes to show you, they're not going to protect you. They're not going to help you in this game. They don't help you in this game. And they should. The same way that Loma should have a rematch based on everything that he has done for the sport of boxing and for his career and what he has brought as a fighter, deserves that rematch. There's no question about ducking this, deserves the rematch. These are things that we don't reward the greatness of people, and that bothers me. That bothers me incredibly, and I will forever hate boxing for what they did to Manny Pacquiao and have him go out like that. He should have gone out in a blaze of glory.
I agree with what you're saying, but at the same time, Pacquiao elected to choose in his last fight first Errol Spence, and then about like 2 weeks notice, even maybe less than that. And he, in typical Manny Pacquiao fashion, from start to finish of his career, fought every big fight that there could be, never ducked anyone. And he was brought with an opponent, and he wasn't going to start in his last fight being nitpicky. Said, this is the only guy that's ready. Let's do it. His legs cramped up. He couldn't deliver, but he was a tough matchup, even if he would have been 100%. Usyk is just a very difficult style to fight against. But I agree that people should have protected him maybe from that fight and said, hold on, we'll just wait a little bit and have a proper send-off. But if he would have had Errol Spence, it would not have been an easy fight, and he chose to have that fight.
But Errol was champion, wasn't he?
He was. Yeah.
It's a little different.
Usyk, now there was like this belt situation between him and Pacquiao, and anyways, we're not going to we talk about that again. But okay, Russ, final thing. What's on the docket? Next week we're going to talk about Fury Wilder. Are you back in the country? Are you still in Europe? What's the situation?
No, I'll be in Manchester next week. I'm sorry, in Liverpool next week for fight week for Liam Smith against Anthony Fowler. Might not mean much to North American fans, but this would be typical of a hometown rivalry. 2 Scousers, getting it on like this is for bragging rights at home. And if you being from the Montreal boxing scene, you know how important bragging rights at home are. It's more important to be champion of Quebec than to be champion of the world. Like you have to have bragging rights at home. And this is what this fight is going to be like. So it sold out in like 24 hours. So I'm looking forward to that fight. It's going to be a great matchup, and I always love working with the Smiths, so I'm looking forward to being part of that and being in Beefy's corner and for this fight.
And all your friends are in town. Roy Jones, I saw you with Bertie McGirt also last week. So you got all your friends that are traveling with you to the UK.
It was really nice, and to see Roy. Roy is a real every day. My friendship and my respect for Roy grows and grows. I love the guy, and I regret not having been closer to him sooner, because he cares about me. I love him. He's a good guy. He'll do anything for me. I love hanging out with him. Buddy's a laugh a minute, being with Buddy, and both of them, despite, we make fun of each other and we laugh and joke, but when it comes to boxing, they listen, and I never feel like I should shut up, or don't say, oh, don't talk to the fighter. Buddy's talking to him, or don't talk to the fighter. Roy's talking. They encourage me to do so. You know what I mean? We think along the same lines. We very rarely have a difference of opinion in how the fight is going to go, or what the fighter should do.
There you go. And again, Russ, congratulations on the big Usyk win. It's going to be a good time to see also what happens with the rematch. There's a lot of boxing in the weeks to come. It's going to be, it feels like pre-pandemic days are really coming forward here, especially in the fight game. So appreciate everyone tuning in. Thank you again for the Calling Russ Anber podcast. We'll be back next week. Tell your friends the YouTube link. We'll have some other formats as well. We're still working on it, but it's slowly but surely. We talked about how this is a substance show more than the style. And I thank you very much for people who are tuning in. We have even new people every week who reach out and comment. So definitely appreciate it. Is it us?
And now we were able to include video highlights. You see, we were able to bring that, and we got video highlights in there.
I'm not sure it's, HD 4K quality just yet, but we'll get there. That's what we need. We need to invest into a technical operator. That will be the next step. So thank you very much, Chris. Have a good evening. Try to get some tea tomorrow, and good luck with the pool.
I'll get to have one now at the snooker club when I go back.
Yeah, okay. All right, sounds good. So take care.
Have a good one.
There you go.